They say that late at night, a shimmering figure sometimes appears in the corridors of the new Amsterdam Theatre in New York City, gently waving a blue bottle before disappearing into the shadows. Some stagehands swear it's the ghost of Olive Thomas, a silent film star and Ziegfeld sensation whose tragic end in 1920 shocked the entertainment world. True or not, her name still stirs a sense of wonder and heartbreak among fans of early Hollywood and Broadway history. How did Olive, a small-town girl who once sold linens for a living, become an emblem of youthful beauty, a silent era superstar, and then, all too quickly, a poignant cautionary tale? Let's take a warm, reflective journey through her life, remembering not just the glamour and the heartache, but also the deep humanity behind her radiant smile. It was a very different world when Olive Thomas was born on October 20th, 1894, in Charleroi, Pennsylvania. The Gilded Age was beginning to give way to the Progressive Era, and while the wealthiest Americans enjoyed a life of luxury, most families worked long hours for modest wages. This was especially true in Charleroi, a small industrial town near Pittsburgh, where blast furnaces and smoky mills dominated the skyline. Hard labor was the defining reality for countless households. Born Olive R. Duffy, she later adopted her stepfather's last name, Thomas. She started life in humble surroundings, just one among many children in a working-class family. Her mother, Rena, was widowed young when Olive's father died in a workplace accident, leaving Rena to raise 3 children under difficult financial circumstances. Not long afterward, Rena married again, and Olive took the surname of her stepfather, Owen Thomas. Family members recalled Olive as a curious, fun-loving child who enjoyed playing pranks on her siblings whenever she got the chance. But from an early age, she shouldered more responsibility than many kids today can imagine. She would help around the house, watch her younger brothers, and later contribute to the family budget by taking whatever job she could find. That was just the reality for working-class families. Everyone pitched in. As a teenager, Olive worked at a local department store, selling everything from bolts of fabric to household goods. She was praised for her warm smile and friendly chatter, traits that would later serve her well on stage and screen. She also gained an early taste of adult responsibilities when she married Bernard Krug Thomas at the tender age of 15. Accounts differ on precisely why they wed so young. Some suggest she was seeking financial security or an escape from her small-town confines. In any event, the marriage didn't last, and they divorced in 1913. Olive chose to keep his last name, though, possibly because she liked how it sounded or felt it gave her a more straightforward identity. In a few short years, that name would be in lights across the country. After the divorce, Olive, then around 19, decided to leave Charleroi. She'd grown up with industrial soot under her fingernails, and she dreamed of bigger horizons. Maybe she sensed she had a spark that belonged on a broader stage. So she set out for New York City, the epicenter of vaudeville theater and new opportunities for ambitious women. If you imagine Times Square in 1913, you'll see trolley cars, half-lit electric signs, and a certain gritty allure. Women were just starting to push boundaries, seeking independence and jobs outside the traditional roles of wife and mother. The city was teeming with young dreamers who believed they might catch a break in show business or modeling. Olive found herself sharing cramped rooms with other young women, all of them scraping by. She found work in a Harlem department store, but that alone didn't satisfy her. By day, she dealt with customers. By night, she studied the vibrant posters advertising theatrical shows, enthralled by the bright possibilities they suggested. Fate intervened one evening when, while out at a dance hall, she caught the eye of a local photographer. He told her she had a striking face and asked if she'd ever considered modeling. Although such invitations could be shady in those days, Olive's sense of adventure and her financial needs outweighed her caution, so she accepted. The resulting photographs turned out beautifully, her features captured in a soft, luminous glow. In those pictures, you can see a flicker of the star she'd become. Before long, those photos caught the attention of folks in Manhattan's thriving art and publishing world. One day, an agent who scouted models for magazines like Saturday Evening Post and Harper's approached Olive, offering her gigs as an artist's model. Such modeling paid more in a single day than her department store job paid in a week. It was a no-brainer. She stepped off the retail floor and onto a stool in a studio with bright lights. It was a daring move for a small-town girl who'd been married and divorced before she was even out of her teens, but she embraced the challenge. Soon, her face started appearing on magazine covers, sometimes representing the quintessential American beauty, rosy cheeks, sparkling eyes, and an unassuming smile. A real turning point arrived when Olive entered and won a Most Beautiful Girl in New York City contest, run by a popular magazine. The prize included widespread publicity, and the timing couldn't have been better. The modeling realm was expanding in tandem with the entertainment industry, and young women were crossing over from magazines to stage reviews or early silent films with increasing frequency. It was right then that Florence Ziegfeld, arguably the most famous Broadway producer of the era, known for his extravagant Ziegfeld follies, caught a glimpse of Olive's image. Intrigued, he summoned her for an audition, perhaps seeing in her that delicate blend of innocence and allure that American audiences were eating up at the time. When Olive stepped onto the stage of the New Amsterdam Theatre for the Ziegfeld Follies, she became part of an iconic institution that merged dance, song, comedy, and showgirl glamour into a single, splashy spectacle. Ziegfeld handpicked his girls for their beauty and presence, showcasing them in lavish costumes and big production numbers. Competition among the Follies girls was intense, but Olive stood out for her sweetness. At first, she was placed in the chorus line, wearing glittering outfits and performing choreographed dances with dozens of other young women, but the audience soon noticed her radiant face and joyful energy. She was also rumored to be something of a practical joker backstage, once sprinkling confetti into a fellow dancer's wig moments before the curtain rose. For all her budding fame, Olive never lost that playful spark. While performing with the Ziegfeld Follies, Olive met a circle of show business folks that included top comedians, dancers, and stage managers. She formed friendships that would guide her next career moves. Standing in the spotlight on a nightly basis also gave her a taste for larger challenges, like the kind that was unfolding out in California. See, by 1916, the silent film industry was booming. Thousands of miles away in Los Angeles, motion picture studios were rising from the dusty ground, offering new stars million-dollar paychecks and national fame. Film reels were shipped across the country weekly, allowing Middle America to see the same stars that dazzled the coasts. In 1916 or so, Olive decided to chase the allure of film. She traveled to Hollywood, where many studios were then in Fort Lee, New Jersey, or in other places along the East Coast, before fully migrating west. She started by appearing in short comedies. Her on-screen presence felt both genuine and flirtatious, a combination that directors found winning. Before long, she'd signed a contract with the Selznick Pictures Company, a major step up from cameo appearances. The silent movie era was deeply competitive. Each week, new starlets tried to outshine the last, and the press crowned a new it girl every season. But Olive's career soared surprisingly fast. Critics praised her as an actress who, even without dialogue, conveyed an emotional sincerity on screen, intense joy, real sadness, or playful teasing. She was never overshadowed by the era's mania for comedic pies in the face or over-the-top pantomime. In 1917, Olive starred in An Even Break, a film that positioned her as a small-town girl making her way in the big city. It was a role that wasn't too far off from her own life story, and audiences responded warmly. By now, the public recognized her as a rising star, and her studio realized she could carry a feature film. Over the next few years, she appeared in more than 20 silent features, often playing young, spirited heroines. Films like Indiscreet Corinne and The Flapper, the latter a comedic drama about a teenage girl yearning for adventures, really boosted her popularity. In fact, The Flapper is often cited as one of the earliest cinematic portrayals of the flapper archetype, predating the full explosion of 1920s jazz-age flapper culture. Olive, in her carefree on-screen persona, gave audiences a sneak peek of the rebellious, fun-loving spirit that would soon define the decade. Behind the scenes, life was just as eventful. In 1916, Olive met Jack Pickford, the younger brother of Hollywood megastar Mary Pickford, often called America's sweetheart. Jack was part of a prominent show business family. He was charming, impulsive, and prone to wild partying. He and Olive struck up a whirlwind romance. One story has them meeting at a late-night gathering after a Broadway show. Another claims they first chatted at a Hollywood bash. However it happened, their chemistry was undeniable. They soon began dating in a swirl of nightclub dancing, trips to the beach, and scandalizing some more conservative folks who wondered if their match was too fast, too intense. Yet, in October of 1916, they tied the knot in secret, determined not to overshadow Mary Pickford's career or cause a tabloid feeding frenzy. The news did leak eventually, of course. Newspapers delighted in describing the adorable union of two shining Hollywood up-and-comers. To outsiders, their marriage seemed blissful, a fairy tale romance between two beautiful, carefree stars. But in reality, it was marked by dramatic ups and downs, huge arguments followed by passionate reconciliations. Both enjoyed nightlife, and rumors abounded of heavy drinking and substance use within Hollywood's party circles. That era was also overshadowed by the pandemic of 1918, which caused immense anxieties across America, including in the film community. There were production halts, quarantines, and tragedies. Through it all, Olive kept working, churning out one film after another, while Jack also attempted to build his career. Some historians describe the couple's relationship as tempestuous, driven by the intense personalities of two young stars who constantly wrestled with newfound wealth, the pressure of Hollywood stardom, and personal insecurities. They would break up, then reconcile, each time swearing deeper devotion. Yet for all the drama, friends close to them insisted that Olive and Jack truly loved each other. They shared a flair for fun, a thirst for excitement, and a love of traveling when they could find time away from filming. By 1920, both were in their mid-20s and looking forward to forging an even more glamorous chapter of their lives. Early that year, Olive took a trip to Paris with Jack. It was partly a romantic getaway. Paris was the city of love, after all, and partly a chance for them to shop, sightsee, and let the tension of Hollywood life melt away. They stayed at the Hotel Ritz, a legendary spot for wealthy travelers, with plush accommodations and staff who were accustomed to fulfilling every whim of their well-heeled guests. No one could have guessed the heartbreak that awaited them there. On the night of September 5th, 1920, after a celebratory evening at the Ritz, Olive and Jack returned to their suite. The details of what happened next remain controversial to this day. The most accepted account is that Olive accidentally ingested a mercury bichloride solution that Jack had used as a topical treatment for chronic syphilis. The solution was extremely poisonous if swallowed. Allegedly, Olive, perhaps disoriented from alcohol, thought the bottle contained a sleeping tonic or headache remedy, took a swig, and immediately realized something was dreadfully wrong. She cried out to Jack, who found her writhing in pain. Doctors were summoned, but it was too late. Olive's condition worsened over the next few days, and on September 10th, 1920, she died in a Paris hospital at just 25 years old. The news sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. Newspapers published sensational headlines. Was it suicide, an accident, or something darker? The French authorities conducted an investigation and concluded it was indeed accidental poisoning. However, that didn't stop tabloids from speculating about a secret marriage meltdown or hidden despair. Some suggested that perhaps she was jealous of Mary Pickford's success. Others whispered that maybe Jack's rumored drug use had contributed to a volatile environment. In reality, it was likely a tragic accident caused by confusion and misjudgment, compounded by an atmosphere of late-night partying. Still, controversies swirl to this day, and you'll find historians debating the tragedy with fervor. Hollywood, at that time, was no stranger to scandal. Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle's infamous legal troubles and the controversies surrounding drug use and moral improprieties among stars had already fueled calls for greater censorship and oversight. Olive's death added to the sense that Hollywood was a place of vice, corruption, and heartbreak behind the glittering facade. Studios scrambled to contain negative publicity, reassuring the public that screen idols were morally upright and that Olive's death was a rare, unfortunate mishap. Jack Pickford, for his part, was devastated. He returned to the United States carrying Olive's casket, accompanied by a swirl of paparazzi who hounded him for a statement. The funeral was a subdued affair. Mary Pickford, out of town at the time, reportedly collapsed upon hearing of Olive's death, deeply shaken by the tragedy. Directors and co-stars who had worked with Olive expressed shock, describing her as someone who brought genuine warmth to a cutthroat industry. In the days following her passing, fans left flowers at her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Though it would only be officially established in 1960, she was honored in a kind of predecessor tradition of tributes for beloved film personalities, and theaters played her films as tributes. The public mourning was intense, if somewhat overshadowed by other industry scandals swirling at the time. Even after her death, rumors and controversies flared. Some insisted that the toxicity report showed an amount of mercury that would have required more than a single accidental gulp. Others wondered why the bottle was left in a place so easily accessible. Was Olive upset about her marriage? Was there a fight that night? The official record remains that it was an accident, but the gossip never fully subsided, leaving an air of mystery over her final hours in Paris. In the aftermath, Olive Thomas's name quickly became a kind of Hollywood legend, the beautiful, vibrant star gone too soon, a cautionary tale that carried echoes of the flapper spirit she had helped popularize on screen. Over the next decade, as the Roaring Twenties roared on, other starlets rose to prominence and new controversies emerged. Yet, Olive's story lingered in the background, told in hushed tones at studio lots. In the hearts of her fans, she remained the girl with the luminous smile who had proven that an ordinary kid from Pennsylvania could find success in the bright lights, only to lose everything in a moment's tragic mistake. Beyond the sorrow of her passing, her legacy had a genuine cultural impact. She was among the first actresses to portray a flapper on film, giving the American public a glimpse of the carefree, youthful rebellion that would define the 1920s. She also represented the collision between the stage and the new medium of film, bridging the gap with her Ziegfeld Follies background and on-screen success. She was an early example of how a woman with no wealthy or famous connections could step forward purely on her looks, charm, and talent to become a star. In that sense, she helped lay the groundwork for future generations of actresses who recognized that Hollywood, for all its flaws, offered a chance at reinvention. Though her career was brief, barely 4 years of starring roles, Olive left behind over 24 films. Many have been lost to time, as silent film preservation was notoriously poor in those days. A handful survive, occasionally popping up in film archives or special screenings devoted to the silent era. Watching them now, it's easy to see why she captivated audiences. Even in black and white, without audible dialogue, her expressive eyes and buoyant energy jump off the screen. She often played characters brimming with optimism, a reflection perhaps of her real-life persona. Co-stars recalled that she could lighten the mood on set with a small prank or a kind word to a nervous extra. When we speak of Olive Thomas today, one question often arises. Why should modern audiences care about a silent era star who died a century ago, especially one overshadowed by bigger names like Mary Pickford or Lillian Gish? The answer lies in Olive's story. First, she epitomizes the classic American dream of self-transformation, climbing out of a depressed steel town to shine in New York's top review, and then pivot to Hollywood stardom. Second, her tragic end underscores the real vulnerabilities behind the early Hollywood mystique. She was a bright young woman living in a chaotic environment, with little in the way of support systems that might have helped her navigate marriage struggles or the pressures of fame. The entertainment industry has always had its cautionary tales of fleeting success and personal risk, and Olive's narrative fits that pattern all too well. Finally, her role in shaping the flapper icon stands as a cultural milestone. Before Louise Brooks or Clara Bow, Olive offered a playful glimpse of the freewheeling youth culture just around the corner. If you ever find yourself in Manhattan's theater district, near the new Amsterdam Theatre, you might hear staff mention that a ghostly presence occasionally roams the building late at night. They say an ethereal young woman with a bobbed haircut and a sweet smile sometimes appears, clad in a shimmering costume reminiscent of the Ziegfeld Follies. She's said to hold a small bottle or raise a playful wave, as though reminding folks not to forget her. Are these just ghost stories spun by imaginative stagehands? Most likely. But in a strange way, it captures the essence of Olive Thomas, that lingering spirit of youth and hope that left the stage too soon, yet still enchants us enough to share a wistful tale or two. Of course, the reality of Olive's last hours in Paris is heartbreakingly grounded. She was a flesh and blood person, not just a flitting spirit or a silent era footnote. She had struggles, ambitions, and the simple desire to be happy. In reading letters from the period, some from her mother or from close friends, it's clear that behind the glitzy on-screen persona stood someone with everyday worries. She felt the sting of jealousy, the hurt of gossip, and the longing for a stable home life. She worried about pleasing her audience, her studio bosses, and, most of all, her husband, despite the rocky patches they endured. In that sense, she's relatable to any of us who have juggled career dreams with complicated personal relationships. Shortly before her final trip, she had confided to a friend that she was excited about seeing Paris for the first time. She wrote something along the lines of, "I've always dreamed of strolling under the lights of the city. Jack says I'll love it there." She wasn't even fully aware that she would soon be moving into the prime of her career. Some producers were considering bigger, more dramatic roles for her. She might have expanded her range beyond comedic flapper parts, tackling more serious material. It's heartbreaking to think about the roles never filmed, the applause never received, and the personal happiness she might have achieved had events played out differently. The immediate aftermath of her death also influenced Hollywood's approach to public relations. Studios became more cautious about the personal exploits of their stars, sometimes imposing morality clauses and hiring publicity teams to spin or suppress unflattering stories. In a way, the tragedy of Olive Thomas foreshadowed the type of crisis management that modern Hollywood still practices. Industry executives realized that any whiff of scandal or tragic demise could alter public perception of the glamorous dream factory. And indeed, after Olive died, some newspapers editorialized about the dangerous freedoms young starlets enjoyed, fueling arguments for stricter oversight of film content, leading eventually to the production code. Yet for all the fuss, Olive's name gradually faded from mainstream memory. As the 1920s roared on, new starlets emerged. Mary Pickford's continued success overshadowed her sister-in-law's memory. By the time Sound Pictures revolutionized cinema in 1927, Olive's silent roles were becoming relics of a bygone era. Her final resting place is Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx, far from Hollywood Center, visited by dedicated silent film buffs who leave flowers on her grave. Occasionally, a retrospective screening of The Flapper, or Youthful Folly, will spark curiosity, leading modern audiences to rediscover her luminous presence. In recent years, a small but devoted group of film historians and silent movie enthusiasts have revived interest in Olive Thomas. Documentaries and blog posts have delved into her story, re-examining her rise to stardom and the swirl of conspiracy theories around her death. The question persists: was it simply a dreadful accident or something more sinister? While official records confirm accidental poisoning, some folks still refuse to let the matter rest, perhaps because the uncertainty adds a layer of mystique to her memory. But Olive's real significance lies less in the manner of her passing and more in the vibrant life she led before that fateful night. If we could sit down with Olive Thomas now, maybe in a quiet cafe near the old Broadway haunts, one suspects she'd have a laugh about all the ghost stories. She might shrug off the tabloid rumors, preferring to reminisce about the silly pranks backstage with the Follies girls, or the way she felt the first time she saw herself on the silver screen. She might talk about her love for Jack, the good times anyway, and how proud she was to have found success despite an early marriage and limited opportunities back in Charleroi. In the end, she was, like most of us, a tangle of hopes and heartaches, triumphs and regrets. Her story reminds us that Hollywood's earliest days weren't just about glamorous premieres and budding technology. They also involved real people stepping into an industry that had few rules and even fewer safety nets. Olive was among the many who discovered how fame could be both exhilarating and treacherous. She soared quickly, found love, made some questionable decisions, and endured heartbreak. That she died in such a tragic, ambiguous way lends her biography a haunting resonance, like an unfinished melody that leaves you yearning for the final note. And so we circle back to that rumored ghost in the new Amsterdam Theatre. Maybe it's a myth conjured by stage folk who love a good yarn, or maybe it's something intangible that lingers whenever a performer leaves too soon. Whether or not you believe in ghosts, Olive Thomas remains a vivid presence for those who explore the silent film era, a presence that leaps from the screen whenever archivists manage to unearth and restore one of her features. The flickering frames reveal a young woman alive with promise and a cheeky sense of humor, the corners of her mouth curling up as though she's in on a secret joke only she understands. We tend to mythologize the silent film era, imagining it as a romantic world of swirling dresses and wide-eyed innocence. In truth, it was a demanding environment where new stars rose and fell with startling speed, and the personal costs were sometimes devastating. Olive's experience underscores the need for compassion and caution in an industry that, to this day, can burn out youthful optimism in the face of relentless pressure. Her tragedy is a reminder that behind every marquee name is a real human heart, vulnerable to mistakes, mental health struggles, and unfortunate twists of fate. As we bring this conversation to a close, let's hold on to the image of Olive's warm smile. Rather than focusing solely on how she died, we can remember the determined girl from Charleroi who once sold linens to feed her family, leaped onto the new Amsterdam stage with starry eyes, and then conquered Hollywood with her buoyant spirit. Her story carries lessons about the fleeting nature of fame, the complexities of love, and the small slip that can separate life from loss. Modern audiences might find wisdom there, an understanding that none of us are guaranteed a long, untroubled journey, and that every day spent chasing a dream is a day worth cherishing. In the end, Olive Thomas stands as both a romantic icon of the silent screen and a cautionary tale of what can happen when youth, freedom, and uncertainty collide. She continues to capture our imaginations because she lived boldly. She illuminated the early stage of American entertainment like a rare comet blazing across the night sky. We can only wonder how her career and life might have evolved had she been given more time. Still, in that short arc, she etched her name into Hollywood history, forging a legacy that refuses to fade. From Charleroi to Broadway to Paris, it's a journey so dramatic and poignant that it remains unforgettable a century later. And perhaps in that sense, Olive Thomas achieved a kind of immortality after all. And that's all for today's video. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up, let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and subscribe so you won't miss out on future uploads. See you next time.